So hello guys, welcome back to another exercise, and today in this exercise we will install DNS server role in our Windows server. So before we start this installation, I want you to show some basic concepts. So the first one is DNS. So what is DNS? So it means domain name system, and it is a phone book of the internet. So human access information online through domain names, for example youtube.com or amazon.com, but the web browsers interact through internet protocol addresses, which we normally call IP addresses. So the main role of DNS is to translate these domain names to IP addresses. So the process of DNS resolution involves converting a host name, for example example.com or youtube.com. So it involves the converting of host name into a computer friendly IP address such as 8.8.8.8. So for the web browser, the DNS lookup occurs behind the scene, and it doesn't require any interaction from the user. So what is a DNS server? DNS server is a server that is specifically used for matching website host name to their corresponding IP addresses. So the DNS server contains a database of public IP addresses and their corresponding domain names. So there are four types of DNS server involved in loading a web page: DNS recursor, DNS root name server, TLD, which is top level domain name server, and authoritative name server. So let's explain these now. So the first one is DNS recursor, and it is a server that is designed to receive queries from client machines through applications such as a web browser. So then it is responsible for making additional requests in order to satisfy the client's DNS queries. And then we have root name server. So the root server is the first step in translating or resolving human readable host names to IP addresses. So it can be thought of like an index in a library that points to different racks of books. Typically it serves as a reference. So then we have top level domain server. So the top level domain server can be thought of as a specific rack of books in a library. So the name server is the next step in the search for a specific IP address, and it hosts the last portion of a host name. So the last portion is .com. So .com is a top level domain. And then we have authoritative name server. It is the last step in the name server query. If the authoritative name server has access to the requested record, it will return the IP address for the requested hostname back to the DNS recursor, and then it will revert back to the browser. So after this we have DNS lookup zones. So we have forward lookup zone and reverse lookup zone. So a forward lookup zone typically converts a name to an IP address or another name at some point. The important part is that you start with a name, and that name gets converted or resolved into an IP address in most cases. This zone contains all the records of domain name to their IP address. And when we talk about reverse lookup zones, it is the opposite of the first one, which is forward lookup zone. So a reverse lookup zone contains all the records for the IP addresses, and when you query for an IP address, it will be then converted to a domain name. So it would be too easy to define a reverse lookup zone as the opposite of forward, but it is true. A reverse lookup zone is used anytime you want to convert any IP address to a name. And finally, we have DNS records. So there are some type of records that we are going to use in this exercise, which includes A and quad A records. So A record is most commonly used to map a fully qualified domain name to an IPv4 address, and it acts as a translator by converting domain name to an IPv4 address. And if we talk about quad A, it is similar to the first one, but it will map to an IPv6 address. And then there are some other records as well that you can have a look, but the next one that we will need is pointer record, which is at 11. So pointer record is the reverse of A and quad A record. So it will map an IP address to a fully qualified domain name. So this you can have a look at it, and now we can start our exercise. Here you can see that our virtual machine is up, and these are the steps that we have to follow. So our virtual machine is on, so we have to start from the second step, which is that we have to open PowerShell from start menu, and then we have to issue this command. So the command is install Windows feature. So it's the command name which will work. So install Windows feature, and then we have to put the command name, and we have to complete the command. So let's go to the PowerShell, and we are in the PowerShell. Now we have to issue the command. So let's check the command. So the command is install Windows feature, then the feature name, and then the sub option that we have to include, so which is install management tool. So we need the graphical user interface which will include all the management tools. So before we press enter, let's verify that the command that we are using is same. So we open our study guide, and let me do it small, and here you can see install dash Windows feature space DNS include management tools, and after we put the command we just press enter. and it will start the installation automatically. So it will collect some data and it will start the installation. So we have to wait a little bit, and now it is installing the features and everything. So let's wait for a little bit, and here you can see that the installation is success. So the first step, you can see that restart is not required and success is true. So it is installed. So we have another command as well that we can use to verify that it is installed or not. So after the DNS server role is installed, enter the command get windows feature DNS. So get windows feature star DNS star. So star means all the names which includes DNS before and after. So you can see DNS server tools, it is installed. So r set DNS server, so it is installed. So now it will explain what is installed. So the asterisks are the wildcard symbols that will show any features containing the text DNS. So it means if we are putting star before and after, it means all the features which includes DNS before and after, it will show all of them. And if you noticed, we have an X before the name of the services or the features. So this X means that these features are being installed. So this part is okay, our features are installed. Now we can move to the next step, which is configuring the internal server network interface. So if you remember, we have two network adapters, which is the external one and the internal. So we are configuring the internal server network interface to use itself for DNS name resolution. So the command is listed below. So the command is set DNS client server address space interface alias. So interface alias means the name of the interface, which is internal, and then we have to put the server address, which is the IP address. So let's put the command, which is this one, and we can check it. So the server address is 127.0.0.1. So this is the command. So after we put this command, we can press enter, and this one is set. And now the next step is to do the same for the external server network interface. So the command will remain the same, just the name of the interface will change, which is external net. So the IP address is also same, which is 127.0.0.1. So now what you can do is you can use the up arrow key. So when you press up arrow key, you will get the same command, and now we can change the name only. So interface alias is external net. External net. So now we are configuring the external net to use itself for DNS name resolution. So these will use itself for DNS name resolution. So now we can put. So after we hit enter, it will be installed or configured. Now we can put ipconfig/all. So it will show us that the DNS server being used by the interface is 127.0.0.1. So ipconfig/all. And here if you notice that the DNS server being used by the ethernet, which is internal, is 127.0.0.1, and it is same for the external net. And here you can see 127.0.0.1. So this part is okay. So our interfaces are using the same IP address for the DNS name resolution that we have just configured. So now we can move to the next step. So now we have to go to DNS functionality, so we can verify the DNS functionality, and for this we have to go to the PowerShell, and then we can type ns lookup and enter, and then we can put a domain name, which is www.google.com. So in the PowerShell we can put DNS lookup, ns lookup. So it is name server lookup, and here you can see that the name server lookup is 127.0.0.1, and here we are inside ns lookup now. So in ns lookup we can put the domain name, which is www.google.com. So let's put it. So first it will give you some request timeout, but then after you will get the server address, which you can see here. So it could be due to that we are not connected to the internet also. But with this we can verify that our name server lookup is working. So I tried the same as well for youtube.com, and it is giving us the response, which are these IP addresses. So it means the name server lookup is working. So now we can try something else here. So www.google.com, and you can see that it is giving the IPv6 address and IPv4 address, both of the addresses. And here now we can move to the next exercise, which is configuring the DNS server. So now we will use the reverse and forward lookup zone. So that's why I have just explained you in the starting of the video. So now we will work on the name and lookup zones. So now if we move to the next part, let's full screen it, and now we can go to DNS app. So DNS, and here you can see that we have our server, and here you can see forward lookup zone and reverse lookup zone. So now the next part is that after we go to DNS, we can use the DNS tools app to open it, and then we press enter, and we can navigate to the DNS manager and expand our server name, which we have done already. And now we have to create a new lookup zone, which is in the forward section. So here you can see that we are in the DNS manager, and now we have to go to the DNS manager window, expand your server name, highlight forward lookup zone, and then click forward lookup zones and choose new zone. So look, this is the forward lookup zone, and new zone is not working, so we have to expand it. We double click on it, and now we can add a new zone. So we have two options: either we go to action, and then we can click on new zone. So either we go from here new zone, or we can click on right click on forward lookup zone, so new zone. So click on next, we click next, accept the default of a primary zone, and then we click next. So as the zone name we can put or type fakezone.com. So next, primary zone and the zone name. So zone name will be fakezone.com. Okay, next. And then this will remain the same. Create a new file with the file name, and the rest we can accept as default, and then we can finish it. Okay. So next, next, and finish. So now we have created a forward lookup zone, and you can see here that we have two records in it. So expand the forward lookup zone and click on fakezone.com. And on the right, notice the default SOA and NS name record. So we have two. One of them is SOA, and then we have name server record. So these are created automatically. Now after we have created a forward lookup zone, we have to create a reverse lookup zone as well, which should be created for the subnet. On the left, highlight reverse lookup zone, right click on reverse lookup zone and create a new zone. And then we have to create it for a primary IPv4 reverse lookup zone. So the network ID is this one, 192.168.1. So this is the network ID. So we go to reverse lookup zone. We create, click next, primary zone, IPv4 reverse lookup. And then we have to put our network ID. So as we have set the IP address to 192.168.1.200 for the internal, so we are creating the zone with 192.168.1. And the rest it will cover everything. So it's for the whole subnet. Okay, so this process we have done. So right click on fakezone.com, and then we have to choose a new host, A or quad A record, which I have explained you already. So A record will be for IPv4 and quad A record will be for IPv6. So we are going to use A record, which will be IPv4. So we right click on fakezone.com because we are creating record for fakezone.com, and here we go to new host A or quad A record. Click OK, and then in the new host window specify www for the name in the step 12, and then we have to enter the IP address for the host, which is 192.168.1.200. So let's do it. So here we put www.fakezone.com, and the IP address is 192.168, and this we can leave as it is, 1.200. So create associated pointer record. So you have already studied about pointer record as well, which is the reverse of A and quad A record. So now we have created another record, which is A record, and this you can verify from fakezone.com. So if you go to fakezone.com and double click on it, you will see the new A records, which we have already seen. So now we can go to PowerShell and NS lookup. So here you can see when you double click, you have the A record, which we have already seen. So now we have to go to PowerShell. So we start our PowerShell and we put ns lookup, which we have already done. So we are going to check for www.fakezone.com now. So let's go to our virtual machine, and now we close this one, PowerShell, and now we go to ns lookup. So we are inside ns lookup now, and we put www.fakezone.com. So here you can see that the local host is 127.0.0.1 and the address for fakezone.com is 192.168.1.200. So it is returning. So now what we are going to check is we are going to check reverse lookup zone. So now we set type is equal to pointer record, so which will be the opposite of A and quad A record. So if we set the type to pointer record, it will work as reverse as well. So set type is equal to pointer. So pointer record, if you remember, it works the opposite of A and quad A record. So set type is equal to pointer. So after we press enter, and it's ready. So now we can check for the reverse lookup as well. So now if we type 192.168.1.200, we should get the details for fakezone.com. Here you can see name is equal to www.fakezone.com. So our reverse lookup and forward lookup, both of the zones are working. So here you can see, if you notice that the reverse lookup zone has the IP address which is opposite, so 200.1.168.192. So it means that it is working as reverse. So then we can see here, type get dash DNS server. So if we do get dash DNS server, it will give us all the details about the DNS server, including the zones and everything. So if you want to check something, you can use the command get dash DNS server. So let's try this one as well, but you have to notice that the command has to be exactly the same, get dash DNS server, and it will give us all the information about the DNS server, which includes the reverse lookup zone, forward lookup zone, the server used, the IP address, everything will be included. And in the next exercise we will install an active directory server in Windows Server. So I hope you have liked this video and you got some useful information. So I will see you in the next video, which will be about active directory server.